Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making maple oatmeal bread. It's one of my favorites and it only takes some rising time and then baking in the oven. It's going to be really good, so come on back, we'll make the maple oatmeal bread. So today for equipment we're using our trusty KitchenAid mixer, and I have a dough hook attached to that will sort of knead the dough as I mix it slowly on speed 2, and then I'm going to take the dough out and mix it by hand for a few minutes. For our maple oatmeal bread we're going to be using oatmeal. We're going to be using a quick oat. It's a 1-minute oatmeal. That'll go in, that's about a cup, and the rest of it's going to be flour, a little bit of salt, but not too much because the maple syrup has a little bit of salt in it as well. Of course, a couple of eggs and yeast, and all of that together. This is going to go really quick. The hardest part is waiting for the dough to rise, but because I've done bread a lot in this kitchen, there's already yeast floating around in here. The dough is going to rise pretty quickly. It'll probably take an hour or so. Alright everybody, so what I'm going to do is get the water and the syrup and the butter in the pan. What we're going to do is heat up this mixture to about 120 to 130 degrees, and then I'm going to combine that with the dry ingredients. I don't want the mixture or the liquid too hot because that could actually kill the yeast. The warming of this process is going to enhance the yeast and hopefully make the bread rise the way we want it, because we want a big loaf of bread. So I'm going to get my water in here. Then this beautiful maple syrup. This maple syrup comes from the Maple Guild in Island Pond, Vermont. It is a really wonderful, wonderful syrup. You can find it on their website, mapleguild.com. I want to get the rest of this in there. Just a beautiful maple syrup. And this one is infused with a little bit of sea salt, so it tastes fantastic. And also I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of butter. So that's 1.5 cups of water, 1/2 cup of maple syrup, and 1 1/3 teaspoons of butter. So I'm going to get this on the stove, and we'll just get this warming up very slowly. Okay, so I've got the yeast, the oats, the flour, and salt in the bowl. I'm just going to add the oatmeal, and our liquid has already heated up to about 120, so I'm ready to go ahead and pour this in. But what I'm going to do is put this on. I better lift up the bowl first. I'm going to put this on and just mix it up slowly for about 15 seconds. And now I'm going to start putting the the liquid in really, really slowly. And the reason is I don't want it splashing around. And my hands are clean, so it's okay for me to stick my hands in and hurry the butter out. But as this liquid goes in slowly, it's going to slowly form a ball. And that's what we want. I'm going to probably add another cup of flour. Maybe 1.5 cups. We'll see how it goes. And all of this depends on the weather, how much humidity is in the air. It's really incredible, and so when you're making bread, you kind of have to give it an eyeball. Like, that's why you'll see bread recipes talk about, you know, a measurement of flour, but they separate it by about 1 cup or 1.5 cups, because it really depends also on your altitude. So it's barometric pressure, altitude, and humidity. What I'm going for here too is a sticky dough, not so sticky that it is constantly needing more flour, but what I'm going to do, this definitely needs more flour, so I'm going to add another cup, but I'm going to do that slowly. And the dough hook, sometimes it may not look like it's working really well, but actually it is. It's very good about mixing dough. It's incredible. Ever since I've had this, I've been making dough for bread a lot, and it's been working great. And you can hear the mixer kind of whir a little bit. That's because it's got a clutch inside and it's slowing down on its own to keep from burning out the motor. So as I'm looking in the bowl, and you can really smell the maple syrup, as I'm looking in the bowl, it looks like it's forming a ball, and I'll probably start working with it in a second here. I'm gonna add more flour. So I've added the eggs, and now I'm just adding a little more flour. We'll just let this slowly mix up. And again, you don't have to worry about the mixer burning out because the clutch inside keeps it from doing that. It's really slows down on its own because it's kneading dough. And so when I take it out of the bowl, I don't really need to knead it too much by hand, but I like to do that. It's therapeutic. I'm gonna add more flour, probably a half a cup. And that's the other advantage to kneading by hand, is you can add more flour as you knead. And this may actually do it. It smells really good. And I prefer doing it this way to a bread machine. This way is just so magical. When I make French bread, it just does it perfectly, and you're mixing it at a slow speed, and you're just really mixing it until it's combined when you do French bread. But this one, you want it to come all the way up the dough hook like that. I'm just gonna give it another couple minutes here, or another couple seconds. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do is flour the board after I get this off, and I'll show you how to do this. And the cool thing is as the dough mixes, you're already seeing the gluten mix together. So we'll just get this wiped off a little bit. And how I do it is I'm just gonna get a little bit of flour, put it on my board, and that's probably enough. Yeah, you'll get some on the floor. It's no big deal. And now I'll get the dough out with one of my bigger spatulas. And this dough is really strong. What it does too is it's going to rise so fast. And what I normally do is I let it rise for an hour, and then I punch down the dough. Then I cover it back up and let it rise some more. What that's doing is also getting flavor. So we'll get this over into the sink. And now I'll just work this out of the bowl. And it's really just, sometimes I just use my hands and just pull it out. And any of the dough that is stuck in there, we can just kind of coax it out with our spatula and get a little more. There we go. So now it's time to get our hands dirty. So what I'm going to do is kind of push the dough down a little bit, get a little dough on my fingers, and then fold it over, turn it 90 degrees, fold it over again, turn it 90 degrees, fold it over, and really just push your hands into the dough like that. You want to have enough flour on the board so that the dough doesn't stick. But if it does, I have my handy scraper to use. So we're going to get this into a bowl. Okay, so the dough's risen, and all I'm going to do is cut the dough in half. I'm going to flatten it out and kind of roll it up, and then put it in the pans that we'll bake them in, but I'm going to let them rise in the pans for about an hour. So we're going to get started. So I'm going to get some flour, and I'm going to get the flour on my cutting board there, and I'm using a lot, but that's okay. I just don't want the dough to stick. And you can see on camera here that the dough has risen, and I've let this rise twice. So what that means is I let it double in bulk, And then I punched it down with my fist. It's kind of fun, actually, another therapeutic thing. And then I let it rise again. So I'm just going to kind of push it down just very gently, and then take my scraper, which cuts right through dough very nicely, put one piece there. So now I'm just going to take the dough, push it down a little bit. I'm going to get my pans that I've already sprayed with Pam, and I'm just going to roll this dough up like this. I'm not really pushing it down, just trying to make a loaf. And then I'm going to push it down like this in the pan. So I'll get the other loaf, and I like to turn it on the edge and then push it down, because it's sort of another kneading process. And then we'll roll this one up. This is going to be so good. It smells really good. I just love homemade bread. And then I'll push this one down. And what I'm going to do is cover these up with saran wrap. So I knock everything around. We'll cover this one. Cover this one, and there we go. So I'm just going to let these rise for an hour till they're doubled in bulk, and then I'll get the egg wash going with the oats, and then we'll bake them in the oven. So the oven's heating up to 375 degrees. The dough has risen again in the bread pans. So now I'm ready to make the egg wash. So the egg wash is some egg white and a little bit of water, and that's going to help the oats stick onto the top of the bread as it bakes. So I'm going to crack an egg. Let's see if I can do this. All I want is the whites. So I'm just going to do this, 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 this. You can tell I've done it before. Just wash my hands a little bit. And I'm going to add the water that I have in a glass, just a tiny bit. And then I'll get a whisk. I'm just going to whisk it up really fast. Really, it's just to incorporate both of them. And I have some oats here that I'll put on the top in this bowl. So now I'll get one loaf. And the oven's just about ready. I'm excited to try this bread. It's going to be really good. And I'm just going to brush on, just like this. Just want to get it wet. If I just did water, the oats would probably fly off. I mean, some of the oats are going to fly off, but the reason why I'm doing the egg is because it sort of acts as a glue to keep the oats on, but it's not glue. It's going to be really good. And I tend to be generous with the oats. They're going to fall all over the place, but I have a vacuum cleaner. I'll vacuum them all up. Alright, so that looks good for this one. Now I'll get the other one. And as you notice, one of them's slightly smaller. That usually happens when I make bread. I just kind of eye it. I don't weigh the two when I have the dough. I just sort of eye half. You could weigh it if you really want them to be exact. But this is home baking. We're not baking the cellar bread here. We're just making some yummy bread to eat. So there's the oven. It beeps as usual whenever it's ready, which is perfect timing because as soon as I get the oats on the top of this one, I'll put them both in the oven. Just about done. This is just going to be delicious with the maple syrup. It just really is going to make a nice sweet with the salt from the salt that I put in and the salt that was in the maple syrup. So I'm going to open up the oven really carefully. Very hot. Today's actually a perfect day to bake. It's only about 68 degrees and it feels almost like a fall day here in August. So we'll just wait for the loaves to bake and then we can try them. So the bread's out of the oven. It baked for about 38 minutes. I've already taken it out of the pans and it's cooling on a wire rack. It's cooled for a little bit now, so I'm ready to taste it. So let's give it a try. I love the way that this knife cuts. I'm just going to gently slice through. And And once you get to the, oh boy, once you get to the rack, the smell is delicious. I'm gonna take a little taste. Mmm. Wow. This is delicious. So, I can really taste the maple syrup. There's just enough salt in there. It's a really good recipe. So, what I'm gonna do is, once I post the video, I'm gonna post the recipe in the comments section. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. And again, welcome to my kitchen. I'll see you next week when I'll post another baking video.